Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the North East Non-League Show, episode 61, our Stockton Town special. Welcome to our show, and obviously sponsored by DJ Private Hire, Gateway Accountancy Services Limited, Elite Goalkeeper Academy, and Motor F8. Join us tonight. We have the Stockton Town Club Ambassador and former Premier League referee, Jeff Winter. Jeff, thank you very much for coming on the show tonight.
My pleasure.
Yeah, like I say, I know Mickey was a bit busy tonight. I think obviously it's like to say the amount of games that's coming up in the postponement, so I can imagine all managers very busy at the moment, aren't they?
Well, that's non-league football for you. I mean, if you're a manager in the Premier League, you're getting handsomely rewarded. But, you know, at non-league level, it's a labour of love for the vast majority of people. More so the people who are the volunteers at all the clubs, you know, at least the players and managers at certain level are getting some financial recompense for the time. But non-league football always has and always will really survive on volunteers.
Oh, we'll want to definitely. And tonight we're going to be looking at your love as well for Stockton. Obviously, a couple of questions about the former ref days as well, and just about football in general. Really excited to get into things. So, start with yourself and obviously Stockton Town. Where did helping the club all come around from?
Well, a few years ago, I work on most match days at the Riverside on the hospitality side. And as you're well aware, I also go up to Ibrox. I've got a season ticket up there. But I bought season tickets at both Stockton Town and Redcar Athletic. And, you know, whenever they were playing, I went to either games, you know, because I love non-league football. Yeah. It's where I started and it's where I'll finish up. And Redcar Athletic initially asked me to be a club ambassador. And I started putting a few events on for them to help them on the fundraising side. And then at the beginning of this season, I was approached by Stockton, who were obviously at a different level to Redcar Athletic, and asked if I would be an ambassador for the club, and jumped at the opportunity. And we've already just had our first event just before Christmas, and we've got another one arranged for a couple of weeks' time. But, you know, I love the non-league football scene. It's where I cut my teeth. And when you look, I know you said at some stage we talk about refereeing, but without the Northern League, you know, I would never have got to the levels I did. And down the years, going way back to long before you were born, the North East has always had a reputation for producing referees, you know, going back to the Kevin Howleys, Pat Partridges, right the way up to the, you know, the present day with Michael Oliver, you know, refereeing in World Cups, Euros, etc., etc. And I always put that down to the North East non-league football scene. So now, you know, after my refereeing days are long over, it's great to be able to put something back because, like I say, without predominantly the Northern League, as it then was, we know now teams are promoted and going to Northern Prem, North East counties and everything else. But it's still football being played on our patch, and long may it continue to thrive.
Oh, definitely. In Stockton last season, obviously, playoff heartache, and it must have been a horrible way not to go, like you say, great season and them horrible playoffs. But watching on as a fan, what was it like as yourself watching on?
Well, I think back to the last two games, you know, the two playoff games, both penalty shootouts, which, as we all know, is a lottery, winning one and then falling at the final hurdle. But looking on the positive side, it just showed what, in the case of Stockton Town, is possible. You know, Stockton is a big place, and the final playoff game, I got to the ground about 1 o'clock. And they were queuing up to get into the turnstiles. And they actually had to close the turnstiles half an hour before the kickoff because, you know, there's an 1,800 capacity for safety reasons on the ground, about 1,800, and that it was full. You know, they're a well-supported club in non-league terms anyhow, but to show the potential for a big game, what could happen there. It was a fantastic experience. I think everybody was left numb, which probably followed on to the beginning of the season. A couple of new players coming in and maybe a little bit of a hangover from that disappointment for everybody. But, you know, if it had been a club at a different level in the pro game, you know, look at Middlesbrough, for example. They don't win the first 7 games, and people are talking about, get rid of the manager, the players are useless, etc. Fortunately, usually in non-league football, you've got to be a little bit more patient. And, after that hiccup at the start of the season, things so far, so good. And you look at the league table, I think every other team in the league would swap positions. But, not knowing Mickey Dunwell and JD Briggs, they're going to have their feet firmly on the ground. And I think the players will as well, because nothing's been won yet. And still a long way to go. And as you touched on with the postponements and the weather we've got at this particular time, it's going to end up being a minimum of 3 games a week, which is a massive drain on any club's resources, especially when lads are trying to fulfill full-time occupations, and in the league, and this has always been the problem, I go back to the Northern League when there was no promotions allowed, and, the Northern League didn't want to join the pyramid. The problem of being in the pyramid is, like on Tuesday night, there was a 2.5 hour plus drive to Carlton Town, players having to take time off work, and then at 1 o'clock the game's put off. And, looking out the window now, the way the weather is, you can see a few more postponements in the offing, but hopefully, as long as the weather isn't too bad off the pitch, that shouldn't be a problem for Stockton Town's home games.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, you look at obviously the games and what's being played so far, but I can imagine with Mickey and the lads, even after that full time, that change room, the hurt, the feelings was all put together. And obviously, like, the manager would have got the players that he wanted in, moving a few players out, good pre-season. I can imagine going into the season, promotion was that next step. Was that the aim going into the season from Stockton?
Yeah, it's always, I think, at any club, you set your targets and you aim for the top. The thing I like about Stockton, and it's usually at non-league level, the route to success, it's the togetherness. The lads seem as if they get on very, very well. They're a team in every sense of the word. I think at the end of last season, on the back of the disappointment, they went away. They went on holiday together, the vast majority of them. So there is a togetherness there, which it's evident when you're watching the team on the pitch, that they do fight for one another. And, if they're going to succeed this season, they've got to stick together. And so far, so good. The one hiccup was a few weeks ago in the Durham Challenge Cup, when I suppose the great thing of football, you're almost looking at the teams that have gone out. And it was Stockton's first chance. Stockton have never been to the final of that competition, never certainly won the competition. And you start to get carried away with yourself. And I think with Mickey and the lads there, they'll keep people's feet on the ground. And, as we know, if the game's off at the weekend, which it shouldn't be, but if the game's off and all of a sudden the 8-point lead goes down to 5 points and then you lose one, all of a sudden it's gone, hasn't it? And you're under pressure. So I think everybody will be keeping the feet on the ground. But like I said earlier, I don't think many people would swap the position the club are in the league at the moment.
No, definitely not. I mean, like you mentioned before, a draw and a loss to start the season, but it didn't take very long for the things to get changed back to normal, didn't it? It was after that you really pushed on, and like you said, 21 games so far, as we planned on the show, 15 wins, 3 draws, 3 losses. But like you said, never lost at home. And I can imagine some of them sides, especially some of the sides down the bottom, when they look at the fixtures and say, right, we've got Stockton away, they must think, oh, here we go. This is going to be a tough game. But like you say, scoring 51 goals and only conceding 18. If you have a great defence, even if you just concede a goal, you're not going to get beaten in them games, don't you?
Well, it hasn't been perhaps as good as the stats say, because there was a spell in those home games where, it was 0-0 at half time on numerous occasions. And then it all changed in a week, because I think that the stat was something ridiculous that they'd only scored 3 goals at home in the first half of games up to sort of October time. And then in the space of a week, they had 2 home games. I think one was in, might have been in the Durham Challenge Cup, but all of a sudden, in the space of 2 home games, they'd scored 7 or 8 in the first half. So, it's sometimes a case of teams, they'll go away from home, they'll keep it very tight. and then usually, hopefully, the skill, the better players shine through. But you can't argue with those statistics. But like I said, feet on the ground, long way to go.
Definitely. I'm touching wood because I know last season we had Bishop Borton on. I think they're only 2 or 3 points clear. And I think you jinxed them there if didn't go up. I know we had the West Alton manager give them managers a month last month. He hasn't won a game since. So I'm touching wood that it's third time lucky. And hopefully Stockton will keep it going as well.
Well, I've just come back from holiday. I've just come back from holiday, and I think they'd won about 8 games on the bounce. And I went to the game on Saturday at Bridlington, and it was a tough game. And they ended up an injury in the first 10 minutes of the game that changed things around, and then a sending off, and they ended up getting a point, which away from home against a tough team in Bridlington. You think not a bad result, but I'm thinking, am I the bloody Job's comforter sort of thing? Am I the one that's brought the jinx? But hopefully it was a blip and the unbeaten run goes on.
No, fingers crossed. And anyone that's watching as well, keep getting the comments in. We'll go for them as the show goes on. Any Stockton fans, what's your thoughts on the season so far? And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button as well. But we just talked about the Stockton squad and the players that we've got there. And like you say, the talent's all over the pitch. The strikers scoring for fun. And like you say, in defence doing so well. They've got some great players. And it's all about trying to keep them players together now. Because you always see the teams that are doing well in the North East Non-League, it's when they have that group of players when the some of them might only let 1 or 2 go 1 or 2 in instead of making a massive change to the squad. And I think that's what Stockton's done, kept the good players, a good balance of them, and also added better quality that over the summer as well. Do you think?
Yeah, I mean, when you go back, it's sort of 8 years, 9 years ago that they were playing what I would probably describe Parks and Gardens, and then they ended up going Wayside League, Northern League, and they've gone through. And some of the lads, certainly when you talk about strength at the back, some of the lads have been there through that journey. The part and parcel, the number of appearances for a non-league club is phenomenal. And I think it's that stability. It's you see other clubs where money comes in and the change. Yeah. And perhaps the clubs lose a little bit of that identity. And it's almost sad in a way that if you keep on getting promoted, you will eventually get to a level that you perhaps have to get more new players in. And with that comes additional expense. But I mean, Stockton Town, in my time with them and seeing what they're doing, it's more that we're talking about the first team. I might have got my numbers wrong here, but I think there's 43 teams involved in that club. From kids, from girls' teams, and it is being built as something in the community. They've got lovely facilities there. They've just opened a gymnasium fitness centre there that's for the community. So, there is a stability there, and, you can't keep on throwing money at things. The idea is when they played in the Durham Challenge Cup the other week, there was a few lads given the chance that have come through the academy system at the club, the youth setup, and that's the way to go forward because, you look at making a comparison to teams higher up in the professional game. When the money runs out or there's a change in circumstances, you've got a problem. But if you build in the club from within and making it more and more part of the community, then hopefully that success will come. I mean, the big test, and we don't want to tempt fate, the big test comes hopefully next season when they're playing at a higher level, and perhaps there has to be a few more tweaks to the squad. And, you can start throwing money at things and lose perhaps some of the stability and the togetherness that's brought the success to date.
Well, that's it, isn't it? Yeah, definitely. And mentioned there's obviously community and hubs as well. I think a lot of people who's not involved in non-league football just think, oh, it's just a football team down the road. But it's really important in the community. Sometimes that's the hub for that village, for that town, for that city, isn't it? It's just important, especially for all the youth teams, to get them coming down to watch as well. It'd be fantastic, wouldn't it?
Well, I mean, that's my recollections of the Northern League. I mean, you would almost say there are too many football teams in the North East. But, in my day, we'd be driving to Tow Law, and depending on which route you took, you could go past 6 or 7 Northern League grounds. You go through Ferry Hill, and then you're up past Spennymoor, and then, West Auckland, Bishop Auckland, Willington, everything just rolls as you go out of one, virtually a village, into the next village, and they all had a football team. And the great thing the thing I loved about non-league football, I mean, now, since I retired, I've been on the after-dinner speaking circuit for 20-odd years now. And I've done many events at non-league grounds in the Northeast, and I've gone to non-league grounds watching predominantly Redcar Athletic, who are still in the Northern League. And you turn up at somewhere like West Auckland, and there's still faces there that you remember, and sons of the guy who used to be the chairman, he's now the president, and the son's now the secretary. And there's just a togetherness and a family. I mean, the one thing that does sadden me, some of the teams that I went to in my day are no longer there. I mean, here's us talking. I've mentioned the name Redcar Athletic. I've obviously talking about Stockton Town. They weren't at that level when I was refereeing. So there's an emergence of many new teams that have come through, but still there's the non-league family. And I mean, I love it when you see teams slightly disappointing this year that we've only got one team left in the Vars. It used to be fantastic that, when teams from this part of the world, and including Durham and Northumberland, were going to the top in non-league football, brilliant for the region. And the great thing you find is that, whilst there's rivalries between clubs, take down here in my patch, you'd see when Mask United weren't playing, Redcar Athletic fans would go across there to watch their game, and vice versa. Now, sadly, after what's happened at Mask United, I think with the players that have moved to Redcar, there'll be a lot more people going to watch them. But, I go to Stockton predominantly now on the non-league scene, and you see fans from other clubs, even wearing the hats and that. You'll see someone coming along, and they just love the non-league scene. And I think it's great when they have the games on a Friday night, because you get more and more people going to watch.
No, definitely. And a question coming in from Matt. Evening, Matt. Thank you very much for watching. He's just asking how's Tomo doing at the moment for Stockton. Great player.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's a character, and he's a player that, I've interviewed him a couple of times on match day at the club. And I said, he's an unusual character. He's loved by everyone. You talk to Darlington fans, and everywhere he's been loved. And he usually plays 60, 70 minutes now, in the first 60, 70 minutes of a game, but still scores some great goals, and part of the family, most definitely part of the family at Stockton.
Yeah, great player. And getting into your love for the game, Jeff, and obviously travelling all over. I love watching your Facebook stuff, like you say, going to Stockton, Borough, up the Rangers as well, other non-league. I mean, why do you love obviously football so much? I know you were a referee previously. Obviously, a lot of people might retire and that's it, but you're still all involved. What's your love for the game?
Well, I started off, I loved football. I was going to be a world-class footballer myself, but only a distinct lack of ability stopped that happening. So that's why I ended up becoming a referee. But, I started off as a kid following the borough and loved football. And like I said, especially obviously we know Stockton are not in the Northern League, but I class non-league football in the Northeast predominantly around the Northern League. And great that some clubs have managed to go up the pyramid. Without the Northern League, you wouldn't be talking about me refereeing an FA Cup final or doing anything else. The banter, the camaraderie, real football, I call it, because you can go there. I mean, if you want to take the kids can kick a ball around along the side of the pitch. You can stand and have a pint while you're watching the football, and it's affordable. A family day out, going to watch a non-league game, it's absolutely brilliant. And we don't have that I'm keeping my language down tonight, unlike most of my podcasts, but we don't have bloody VAR to worry about. You just have, honest football. Players make mistakes, referees make mistakes, but I sometimes enjoy, I know certainly my partner, if I give her the choice of going to a professional game or a non-league game, she'd be at a non-league game every week because, it's just a different atmosphere, more camaraderie, togetherness, all for the love of the game. And I mean, I love football. I was gutted the other night when the game was off because I was looking forward to an afternoon and an evening out watching the game. And long may it continue. And, when there's a little bit of success, when you followed the Borough for as long as I have, it's nice to actually be watching a club where you might be going to win the league, because those days with the money in the professional game, it's almost, what's the point of getting into the Premier League? Look at Sheffield United and Luton and Burnley, 3 teams that won promotion and struggling to compete. Whereas on the non-league scene, every game's a challenge. And I think the standard, going back to my day, I think the standard is up there, and certainly I used to referee at Billingham Synthonia and there'd be 40 people in the ground. And, the big teams in those days were Spennymoor, Blythe, Whitby, and a few others, where you would get, go to Whitby and there'd be 600 in. You look at the attendances in non-league football now, and some of them are unbelievable.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people are, maybe it's affordability, maybe it's the family side of things that we've talked about, but a lot of people, after, when COVID was around, and people got out of the habit of going to pro games, started watching non-league football, and a lot of people have liked it and continued, and long may it continue.
Oh, it's brilliant. I mean, one thing I love as well with obviously your Facebook and stuff is sharing. I mean, like you say, the stuff that you share for Stockton. I know you've shared posts from our Facebook group as well, but it just takes them 1 or 2 people to share these things, especially with non-league football, that one person sees as a game on here, that someone's being transferred here, and all of a sudden they'll click on it, they'll go to the Facebook pages, they'll go on Twitter, they'll go on the website, and it just creates that little bit of interest just by 1 or 2 more people sharing posts to help that non-league clubs, isn't it?
It takes a second, when I share the posts, I've got direct links to Stockton Town and other teams in the area, and if I see something there, there's the story. I've not yet had the chance to go because there's only sort of 7 days in a week, but Borough Rangers, they've come on the scene and making progress. So if I see if they're sort of saying we're at home on Saturday, it takes me 2 seconds to press the resend button. And if it helps, the events that I've been involved with at a few clubs in the Northeast, if what happened when I put events on the other side of Cleveland, at Redcar, there was people that had never been to a game, but they came to a sportsman's evening, and then they started going to the football. And this is what we're starting and hoping to do. I mean, yesterday I just sent a text and an email and one thing and another, Facebook, social media, about Stockton Town's monthly draw. And, I've got quite a few followers, not necessarily from this area, but if you're saying to someone, look, you can help a team and it costs you $5 a month and they're paying out £250 first prize, I mean, are you really going to win the lottery? The chances of doing that, I'm waiting for my premium bonds coming up every month, but it doesn't always happen. So, somebody putting, £1.25 a week into a football club, that's helping the football club, and the bonuses you might have a chance of winning it. Well, great, promote it. And, it's not just about Stockton. If I see something from another club, we've had horrible occasions down here with the problems with vandalism at Thornaby, and also the situation where Mask were looking to raise money, retweeting. It's about awareness, and there's a lot of people out there that love football, love non-league football, and perhaps look in the mirror and go, there, but for the grace of God go I. It could be, Brandon, a club that, was one of the clubs in Ray Gowan's day that I used to referee at regularly. And then it's sad when you see, I mean, fortunately for them, it looks like they've been saved and they're going to see the season out and hopefully can build and go on to better things. So it's not just about being an ambassador for Stockton Town or Redcar Athletic. It's about trying to help non-league football and perhaps get a few more people interested to go to the games. Because one thing's for sure, once you've been to a couple of games, you're going back.
You're hooked, aren't you?
Yeah.
100%. Before we get on our final few questions, just want to ask you, obviously, we've seen teams now, a few in the North East, like you're touching there, Brandon, Marsk, and a few teams that's really struggling now. But I think, obviously, with the football pyramid, having to make that move up, like you say, the extra bus journeys, the travel, extra wages, outgoings, like you say, fixing the floodlights, the pitches and stuff like that. It's starting to see it now. I can imagine at the end of this season, a lot of teams will kind of sit down and say, and build plans in place to stop other teams from then going there, because I think they'll just obviously, you see clubs flashing the cash one month, then all of a sudden they're struggling, they put out these GoFundMe pages out. I think a lot of teams will have to sit down and make plans to go forward, and that would be more stability, do you think, going forward?
Well, the problem with football, though, is, and it's gone back to my time when the money certainly wasn't as flush as it is at some clubs. But there's always somebody that'll pay a player £10 a week more than the club they're presently at. And, from a young lad's point of view that's playing non-league football, and he goes home and tells his missus, so-and-so want me, and they're going to pay me another 25 quid a week. You can understand some people saying, well, I'm going to take that. So, you're always going to have the situation in football. But, predominantly you wanted me to talk about Stockton tonight. I just have this funny feeling that with the lads there, it's the love of the club, the love. And, if somebody comes in, it's like, Jordan Henderson got criticised by many people about his move, which hasn't lasted that long, in fairness, but his move out there. If you offered money that is significantly better than you're on for your family, it's all very well us sitting here and saying, he's done this, he's done that, he's done the other. If I turned around to you and said, you're going to earn 10 times what you're earning now if you leave your current job, how many people are going to say no? So, you've always got the situation. But, usually clubs that do build slowly, they're the ones that are going to stay the course, because, in the Premier League, and I think that's why a lot of people are turned off, your Man Cities, your Chelseas, etc., that can just throw multi-millions at it. Well, we're not talking, unfortunately, multi-millions on the non-league team scene in the North East, but it's the same principle, isn't it? It's about, keeping the club going, not having peaks and troughs, and gradually building. And, if any team gets promoted the following season, there's got to be sort of if Stockton get promoted this season, are they going to win the league next season? No, they're not. But are they going to stay in that league, and are they going to slowly build and bring the whole club forward? Then you'd like to think that's the aim. So, it's about longevity. And as I say, when I look back to, my days, the Evenwoods, the Hordens, Peter Lees and teams like that, that have had their ups and downs, and some of them not even perhaps playing at any senior level now, that saddens me. So, yes, I think there has to be a realisation that you can't keep on spending unless you've got the money. And then if you've got the money, why shouldn't you? We don't have financial fair play in the Northern League, do we? Not yet.
Well, you can.
But, if you've got the money and you want to build something, and there are clubs spending a lot of money and seem as if they've got the backup and the right reasoning and the right thought process to do it, let's hope for the sake of the supporters that we don't get another Mask United or, what's happened there, because they're a club that had gone up through the pyramid system during my time, got to a level, and, whether they've been paying a little bit more, I don't know the politics at the club, but whether they've been paying more than they could afford, you will, if you follow that route, eventually come to a standstill when the money dries up.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, isn't it? No, definitely. And just before we get to our final few questions, just want to say, everyone that's watching as well, please get across to Facebook, Twitter, and obviously the Stockton Town website, like I say, subscribe to their channel, get everything across to all their pages, and help as much as you can on social media. Like I say, that little like, that follow could help so much moving the club forward as well. And if you haven't already, please hit our subscribe button and help our channel grow as well. And I think a few people, Jeff, when we put out to say that you were coming on, very exciting. Obviously, want to ask you a couple of questions about obviously the refereeing days and a few questions about football in general at the moment. So we've got a few questions to finish. I think this one's quite a big one, and it never ever goes away. But from obviously your refereeing days to now, what's your thoughts on the VAR overall?
Can I swear?
Oh yes, go for it.
This is the first time I've gone this long into an interview without. If people have seen my podcasts under the caution, things like that, I don't usually hold back. I hate VAR. I hate VAR with a passion. But then it's what you wish. You know, years ago when I was coming at the end of my refereeing career, and people were saying, and it was the pundits, you know, referees are costing managers their jobs and everything else. We need this, we need that. I used to say, be careful what you wish for. And now it's a farce. It's a pleasure to go to a game, and, you know, I sit with fans and, was that a penalty, Jeff? I don't bloody know. I'm 60 yards away. And was it, wasn't it? But then the players get up and get on with it. If you're a Newcastle fan that's been involved with VAR, you know, fortunately, Sunderland fans, Middlesbrough fans, and fans of other teams at a pro level, they don't have to put up with it. And if you're sat in a stadium and you're thinking, what the fucking hell is going on here? You don't know what is going on. And there's more arguments now over VAR than there ever was before. So I'm not a fan. The one thing that you can't argue with is the offside, you know, because other than the few occasions where they've totally got it wrong, and now they're on about having automated. And, you know, my advice to any budding footballer is make sure you cut your toenails on a morning, and make sure you wear a half-size boot, less than you should be wearing, because that's the difference between having a bloody good goal chalked off. I want to see goals. I want to see excitement. And, you know, people are now realizing, you know, like with goal line technology, that's a brilliant thing. They're realizing how difficult it was. You know, everyone in the ground can see it. No, you can't. You're talking millimeters. But, you know, I'd like to go back to the old days with offsides where there had to be daylight between, you know, my two mates who play the back rock of the defence at Stockton Town might not be agreeing with me. But, you know, I don't want to see good goals chalked off for an inch or a millimetre. There's going to be mistakes. So, no, and I've kept that fairly under control. If you really want to know what I think of VAR, it'll be X-rated, this programme. I think it's killing the game. And from us on a non-league point of view, perhaps there's some people that are getting that sick of it and now saying, well, I'd rather go down to, you know, a non-league game where I can enjoy the football. I can have a friendly argument saying it was a handball, but then don't get on handballs, because I don't know what a fucking handball is anymore. Yeah. Don't ask me. If any fan sees me at a game, please don't turn around and say to me, Jeff, was that a handball? Because I don't know what a handball is. They've messed it about. The game wasn't broken. It didn't need fixing. But now it's becoming like a game of chess. And no disrespect to people who enjoy the wonderful game of chess, but I don't see 50, 60,000 people queuing up to go and watch a chess match. We go to a football match to be entertained, not to be arguing over millimetres.
No, I totally agree. I mean, I'm one of those, like you say, that's kind of, I've always loved non-league football, and if Newcastle's ever playing away, I've always go out and watch my non-league or Friday night games. But it was just this season, I think it was the Arsenal game, where it was checked for 3 or 4 different VAR decisions before the goal was given. And it kind of just killed the excitement. You kind of celebrate a goal. And like you say, I'm just loving the past where it was down to the referee, down to the linesman, was it onside, offside? And you used to go in the pub afterwards and chat about that. Where now you go, it's all VAR, and it's just totally not different. And I think we went to the game on Saturday against Man City, and it was kind of one of those where I lost the excitement to go to the game again, just because you don't know what's going to happen with VAR. Is it going to be an offside that wasn't? Even though they've checked it over 5 or 6 times, they still might not give the decision correct, and you just lose that excitement. You can't even celebrate a goal anymore, isn't it?
I've sat at Ibrox in games, in European games, before it came into the SPL, and you sat in the ground thinking, what the checking?
Yeah.
No, even Rangers fans, who are pretty vociferous and expect 101% of decisions to go in the way of Rangers, even they're scratching their heads. And, you're saying, I've looked at a ball played through and I thought, oh, it's going to get chalked off that. It's offside. And as it turned out, it was one of the perhaps positives because VAR proved he was offside. But, handballs and then standing there, sitting there, and as you say, celebrating a goal. My old adage for watching a game of football was, when the ball hits the back of the net, I'd have a quick glance across to the line, and then I'd be elbowing someone in the ribs saying, it's offside, it's offside. Now, you can be sat there for 2 or 3 minutes, and let's be honest, when the goal's given, you're still happy, but you don't have that celebration as a fan, as a player, as a manager, anybody involved with the game. It's almost an afterthought. We've scored a goal.
Yeah, it is absolutely crazy.
Not a big fan of VAR.
Definitely not. The next question, got a great question from Matt coming in a moment. But another couple of Borough fans actually asked, how do you think Michael Carrick's doing in his first job at Borough? I know, like you say, a lot of pressure at the start of the season, but a local lad, and he's doing really well now, isn't he?
He's crap. He's terrible. And I think every other team, Premiership club, they want to steer clear of him. They don't even want to entertain him going to their club. So your West Hams and all these people, he's just not the answer. Keep away from him. Let Michael Carrick just continue doing what he's doing at Middlesbrough, building the club, bringing the youngsters through, bringing quality signings in, and leave him alone. So, worst appointment Steve Gibson's ever made. Any club should not be looking for Michael Carrick. Jonathan Woodgate and his team, rubbish.
Yeah, keep on the radar.
Can I have my fingers now? He's doing an absolutely fantastic job. He's got the fans on board behind him. I mean, the one thing you'd say about North East football, non-league football thriving, but also the fans are supporting what we would call the big three. Even down at the next level down, when you're looking at Hartlepool and Darlington, who are not having good seasons, they still have top support, especially away from home. And I know, let's be honest, eventually Michael Carrick is going to move on to a bigger club. But let's just hope it's not too soon. Let's hope he stays. And, unfortunately, the Borough fans, and aren't usually as complimentary as football fans as this, because they don't have any patience. And when you look at the beginning of this season, I think 2 points after 7 games, bottom of the league. And look at us now. We're 90 minutes, 120 minutes away from possibly getting to the cup final. We're 1 point off the playoffs. Now, how many clubs after that start to the season would have pressed the panic button? Fortunately, Middlesbrough have got Steve Gibson as a chairman, with a lot more savvy than a lot of clubs. So leave him alone. Leave Stephen Carrick in the North East at the Borough.
And a question from Matt coming in there: what would be the best piece of advice you could give to a young referee that's coming through now?
Well, I think the final wording in my autobiography was something like, keep you cool, keep calm, and don't let the bastards get you down. The world's changed. Would I like to be? I loved every minute of my career, from non-league right the way to, the top of the domestic game. Loved every minute of it. Would I like to be starting now? The world we live in has changed so much. Social media, everybody's an expert. It's not only football. There was more people knew about how to solve COVID than the doctors and the hospitals and all the medical profession. It's the same with politics and everything. Everyone's an expert on everything. So it's tough. But the one thing you've got to remember is, without a referee, you ain't got a game of football. So,
Exactly.
no matter how crap I noticed somebody wrote something the other day from one of the national sort of referee support groups, and they were saying, considering everybody thinks all referees are crap, why don't they just go and take the laws of the game and enroll? Because they're obviously a lot better than the ones doing it. You know, I mean, all referees in the Premier League are rubbish. All referees that you go and watch reffing your kids' under 12s team are all rubbish. Well, if they're all so bad, why don't the other people who are offering out the criticism take the course and become part and parcel and improve it? It's a bit like saying former players would make referees. I've seen queues outside of the County Football Association in Middlesbrough, Stokesley, 100 yards long of former players wanting to go on the referees course. Have I fuck? You know, everybody likes to whinge. Everybody likes to say they can do it better than the person in charge. If everybody's such an expert, take it up. I mean, best days of my life in a sporting sense, when I took up the course, when I started refereeing, thoroughly enjoyed it. But it's not been made any easier. And now the lawmakers are tweaking and changing this interpretation and that interpretation. Respect for referees has gone down since VAR come in, because now they're being ridiculed, criticised, and, you know, with the VAR side of things, not particularly doing a good job. Yet it's quite ironic. It seems to work in the Euros and work in World Cups. It's just in the Premier League that they just have not got it right, both sides of the border. But yeah, from a pure refereeing point of view, I was lucky when I was coming up. You know, I had people in the Northeast like George Courtney, who, wonderful referee, top guy as well, and many, many more who would help you, give you guidance. So as a young referee, listen to, people that have actually achieved in the game, learn from them. But when it comes down to the 90 minutes, be strong, be fair, and don't let the bastards get you down. Because if you listen to everything everybody says about you as a referee, certainly you need a thick skin. But I sort of close on my refereeing talk by saying, if you ain't got a referee, you ain't got a game. So, on a Sunday morning, the teams won't play. Games are postponed because there wasn't a referee. And the previous week, they've been calling the referee worse than shit. So get it right. A referee doesn't get every decision right. He doesn't get many right if you listen to the fans and listen to some of the players. But without a ref, no game. So love us or hate us, you're stuck with us.
And finally, a lot of people sent this one across as well. Which was the player that you most booked the most?
Well, funnily enough, even though when I brought my book out, even though I have got a book and a record, things like that, I had a proud record. I remember in my final season, I'm sure I went 6 consecutive Premier League games without a single yellow card.
Oh,
Now, that is never going to happen in a month of Sundays now, because, I used to speak to players. You could speak to players being mic'd up. I couldn't have got away. Well, if a referee spoke to players like I did, they'd be sacked. They wouldn't last 25 minutes. But, the banter that you had in those days, man management, and I think this is all the more important at non-league level. The man management is the referee. I always used to say that if I forgot my whistle, as long as I hadn't lost my voice, I could referee the game, because you were talking to players, you were man managing situations, you were trying to keep players on the pitch. And whenever I sent a player off, I was at a game last weekend where a Stockton Town player got sent off. And at the end of the game, I'd like to think that referee would be looking himself in the mirror, not just filling in the report in and sending it in. The player gets fined, the player gets suspended. If ever I sent a player off at the end of the game, I used to say to myself, did I contribute to that? Now, if it was a 2-footed lunging tackle or something of that ilk, it's happened, hasn't it? You can't blame yourself for that. But what brought that occasion around? Was it because I'd missed a few little digs at him in the first half of the game, and finally he's lost his rag or whatever. Sometimes I think referees should be looking at themselves rather than, if I hear a referee turning around and going, "Oh, I've sent 11 off this season," are you proud? Is that why you go out to send players off? To me, coming off the game, and perhaps again, thanks to the Northern League, where clubs didn't like being fined way back when, if you wanted good marks and you wanted to get promoted, you refereed by talking to players, and it had to be something extreme for the book to come out. The honest answer to your question is, I don't know. If your question had been slightly differently, like, who were the biggest twats you came across during your refereeing career, I could give you a few names, but perhaps my style was epitomised by the fact I got on with the bad boys. I used to get on with the likes of Craig Bellamy, the likes of me mate now, because I see him up in Scotland, Alec Ray. You could have some crack with them, Paul Ince. You could have some banter with them. And I think if there was a mutual respect, you didn't have to rely, as long as players knew how far they could go, you didn't have to rely on pulling the book out every 5 minutes, and certainly red cards. So I haven't answered your question, have I? I didn't get on with some guys. I mean, Danny Mills and I sent him off playing for Leeds at Arsenal, along with Boyer. Not Boyer. Yeah, it was. I sent 2 Leeds players off at Arsenal, and Leeds still won. And I don't think Danny Mills has ever forgiven me for that. And there were some players you just didn't get on with. But the vast majority, I mean, I see loads of former players now. And the one thing I would say as advice to young referees, no matter how bad you are when you're a referee, once you've retired, all of a sudden you become a good referee, because people are then, "Hey, I wish you were still reffing, Jeff. We used to have some banter." Didn't fucking say that when I was refereeing. And the other bit of advice for young referees, they say a dog isn't for Christmas, it's for life. Once you've took that referee's course and become known as a referee, you're a referee for life. Because I can't go and watch a game of football now with people either turning around and asking me, was it this, was it that? Or having a go at me. I went to watch Scarborough play in the FA Cup the other week. At the end of the game, some old bloke come up to me and started opening up on us. I mean, fortunately, there was no one around, so I was able to tell him to go away in words slightly different to that. But fuck all to do with me. I'm gone there to watch a game of football. But because I was once a referee, everything the referee does out there, you're all the same. I'm going to a game to support a football team. I might actually agree with the fan that it was a bad decision, but please, it's not my fault. So if any of your listeners, viewers, come up to a game with me and ask me because people ask you questions, but they don't ask you the question, because the tone they ask you the question in is to get a conversation going so they can tell you what they think. They couldn't give a flying fuck what I think. Whether I'm right in law or not, they just want to get it off their chest. So if anybody is thinking about, at any game coming up at the end, to have a quiet word with me about the referee, please don't be offended if the response they get isn't quite as polite as what I've tried to be this evening.
No, excellent, Jeffrey. Honestly, thank you so much for coming on. The love and the passion for the game, it's absolutely fantastic. It's really good to hear all the stories as well. So thank you so much for coming on the show tonight.
I am available for bookings for after dinners, where I can do a bit more swearing and tell the story.
Oh, excellent. Like you say, I'm sure lots will be watching and be in Twitch as well. But like you say, we honestly wish Stockton the very best of luck. And like I said, always throughout the night, please get across to the Facebook page, the Twitter, the YouTube channels, everything you can, and help social media. It's unbelievable what that one like could do with helping the social media grow as well. I know we're back next week. So many things coming on the channel. I think we fully booked up now at the end of February. It's going absolutely crazy at the moment. So we really appreciate all your support as always. And please keep hitting that subscribe button and help us grow as well. But Jeff, thank you so much for coming on the show tonight. I hope you enjoy the rest of your night as well.
Cheers, my pleasure.
Excellent.